Well, along with the score on Thursday night, they should include a body count. More injuries following the Seahawks win over the Cardinals. Most notably, Richard Sherman tore his already ailing Achilles tendon. Hey, welcome to SI Now. The editor-in-chief of the MMQB, Peter King, joins us to talk about what we saw last night. Peter, just how devastating is Sherman's injury for the Seahawks and maybe his career? He is 29 years old after all.
Well, Maggie, about his career, I mean, just consider that the Seattle Seahawks and he discussed an amicable parting last spring. And the Seahawks wanted to see if there was anything really out there. It would have taken more than a first-round pick. My feeling is it probably would have taken 2 first-round picks to get him. And now that he's coming off an Achilles, coming off Achilles surgery, he'll be 30 years old. My feeling is that he's obviously not going to have much marketability in the trade market. He'll probably stay a Seahawk in 2018. But for what it does to the Seahawks this year, there's an air of invincibility when you have Richard Sherman on the field. There just is. More than any other guy on that defense, including Cam Chancellor for his physicality, including Earl Thomas for his braininess, and the fact that he anticipates plays better than any safety in the league, far and away. I just think it's a terrible injury for the Seahawks and whatever chance they had in the postseason. My feeling is the Rams probably were going to win this division anyway, but without Sherman, I think the Rams become significant favorites.
Now, after the game, Doug Baldwin said this about Thursday night games, quote, "This blank should be illegal. It is not okay. You can quote me on that. This is not okay," end quote. Sherman himself wrote a piece for the Players Tribune in 2016 on why he hates Thursday night football. From those you're talking to, are there any alternatives to Thursday games being floated around?
Not now. I mean, it's what usually happens during the season, and I'm not defending this at all, but what usually happens is that there's a lot of outrage about, let's say, the Thursday night football or particular penalties or something like that. But then what happens when time comes in February and March to actually address this, people don't stay as passionate about things. And that's what needs to happen now. I think the problem is because there are still 3 years left in the collective bargaining agreement, and 3 years left to Thursday night football, for it to change during the length of this collective bargaining agreement, owners and players would have to get together to decide to change it. And one of the things that I keep saying, because I think you need to understand one thing about the Thursday night football package. Amazon this year is giving $50 million to the NFL to stream the games. That goes into, the salary cap pool. So in essence, what would happen is that nearly 50% of that money goes to the players. So you have to ask players, I think, and that's certainly not the only money for Thursday night football. You also have clearly the television rights to the games and everything. So you'd have to ask players, would you take X percentage on the cap next year to kill Thursday night football? And so that's the big question, because I think you're not going to be able to just simply say, okay, we're killing the Thursday night games and the cap is going to just continue to rise the way it would have had the Thursday night games been played. That's income that would go away.
But Peter, there is also a thought that there's been an oversaturation of football, that there's too many games on during the week. Amy Trask, the former Oakland Raiders executive, floated this idea. What about taking away Thursday, but creating an 18-game schedule with 2 buys? That way you still have things to sell to Amazon or any other company that you'd like.
Well, what you mean, Maggie, I think is, don't you mean an 18-week schedule, 18 not 18 games?
18-week schedule, pardon me.
Right. I mean, that's certainly possible, and the NFL could do that, and I happen to think it's a very good idea. and but I would also say this, that I think, when people mention the fact that oversaturation is plaguing the game. I mean, Maggie, this is the exact same schedule there was in 2014 and 15 when the ratings kept climbing and climbing. So I mean, look, I think it's possible that oversaturation is a problem, but not just oversaturation with the NFL. I'm talking about oversaturation. I mean, you wake up on Saturday and every channel you turn is a college football game. And so does that count? And I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that in the last half season, since middle of September, it's become very fashionable to say there's too many games on TV. And I get it, and it might be true. But I don't understand why it wasn't true with the exact same schedule in 2014.
Now, last night, Russell Wilson's wizardry was on display, that is, in the Seahawks win, but he was sent off the field by an official for a concussion evaluation. NFL policy says a player cannot return to practice or play unless a team physician and an independent neurological consultant clear him. It appeared Wilson re-entered before he was evaluated. He did go back to the medical tent at the end of their possession. Do you expect any fallout?
That wasn't just an appearance. He did re-enter the game before he was evaluated. And in my opinion, that is the fault of the independent neurological consultant on the sidelines, who should have said, hang on, this game is not continuing right now. Russell Wilson, you get in that tent right now, and we're going to evaluate you. That's the fault. The NFL has put the unaffiliated neurological consultants on the sidelines to call timeout if necessary, to stop the game if necessary, but to say this guy is going to be evaluated. The referee last night on the field took Russell Wilson out of the game. He went to the sidelines. He may have been glanced at by somebody, but he certainly wasn't examined. And Russell Wilson's mindset at that point is, I got to get back in the game. I got to get back in the game. As many players' mindsets have been over the years. But now there's a mechanism in place. I do not blame the mechanism. I do not blame the Seattle Seahawks. I'm sorry. Let me repeat that. I do not blame Russell Wilson. I do not blame the Seattle Seahawks. I blame the mechanism, and I blame the unaffiliated neurological consultant for not saying, stop. Russell Wilson, you're going to get examined.
Yeah, not sure if that's going to do something moving forward. Maybe there'll be increased scrutiny on that role, perhaps. Peter, we should talk, though, about Ezekiel Elliott because he is suspended. We know he's going to miss this Sunday's game against the Falcons, at least 3 more games after that. In November, though, things could change if the Second Circuit Court returns a favorable decision for Zeke. They have yet to rule on the case. But looming over this is Jerry Jones, publicly fighting the league on Zeke's suspension, on Goodell's contract. Is all of this fighting worth it for Jones? What do you think it will accomplish, if anything?
Maggie, going back to when Jerry Jones fought the NFL over the rights, the rights to things like the beverage he could sell in his stadium. If you look at Jerry Jones's history, I have to say, and I'm not saying in this case anything, but in Jerry Jones's history, he's been right almost every time. The side that he has sided on when he didn't want to give money back to the networks. When he didn't want to give money back to the networks, that was a thing that really, really bothered everybody in the NFL, except for a small cadre of owners. And those owners ended up winning. They got Rupert Murdoch involved in the NFL, and that made the NFL $1 jillion. But all I'm saying is, Maggie, I think that even though Jerry Jones probably in this specific case isn't going to win this battle with Roger Goodell, what I can say is that this is, to me, a seminal moment in Roger Goodell's commissionership, because Jerry Jones, the most powerful owner in the league, who a year ago, no matter what Roger Goodell did, it was all right. Everything is right. Did you notice that after the league meetings last month in October, you didn't see a bunch of owners stand up and say, hey, Roger Goodell, right or wrong? Because I don't think they believe that anymore. So I think that Jerry may lose this battle over the Goodell contract. He may. But in my opinion, he's got a lot of people, not necessarily on his side, but he's got a lot of people saying, you know what? I'm not in love with this commissioner either.
Thanks, Peter. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Appreciate your insight, as always. Now, what are the fantasy implications from Ezekiel Elliott's suspension? The fantasy exec, Corey Parson, has his answers in this week's Start and Sit. Who do you pick up if you had Zeke as your number one running back?
Well, obviously, by this point in the season, you know the situation, how it's unfolding. Ezekiel Elliott suspended right now. But if you don't have Alfred Morris, I would go pick up Alfred Morris. Darren McFadden, a lot of people picking up Darren McFadden, too. He's the pass-catching running back, not really a strength of Alfred Morris. So Alfred Morris, Rod Smith, then Darren McFadden in that order. But all three of them, well, two of them should be owned. Three of them, whatever. I don't cut them yet.
Any available Cowboys running back.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the Cowboys situation, is he worth keeping on the roster at all?
Yeah, I would keep him on your roster still. He'll miss weeks 14 and 15 of the fantasy. Those are the first two rounds of the fantasy football playoffs. He won't be there. Come back in week 16, if I'm not mistaken. The matchup is against the Seattle Seahawks. He's ran well against his team in the past and preseason and stuff like that. And they're not that vaunted defense they once were. So, yeah, you can roll him out there. Championship Sunday, week 16. I think Zeke is worth a start. I would hold on to him. And that's how I would play the Ezekiel Elliott thing right now until the news changes when we go off.
You're going to have to sit him this week. How about your starts, the executive decisions on who to start this week?
Let's start with our quarterback position. Let's start with Jared Goff. Right now, Jared Goff is quarterback 12 on the season. That makes him a QB1. Last season, this guy looked like the worst quarterback in the NFL. But that's Jeff Fisher does that to you. You notice Jeff Fisher puts that dark cloud. Sean McVay came in there, opened the situation up. This week, he gets the Texans secondary that was lit up last week by Jacoby Brissett, the game manager, Jacoby Brissett. So I would play him over guys like Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, some names that you're normally used to playing. Jared Goff is getting it done. I think he continues to get it done this week. Has a plus matchup versus that secondary.
Don't scoff at Goff this week. Who's up next?
I like that. Mohamed Sanu. Mohamed Sanu is getting it done. The Dallas Cowboys give up a lot of points, fantasy points, to slot wide receivers. Remember Jameson Crowder a few weeks ago? He was playing bad. Mohamed Sanu's playing good. He'll be good this week. Julio Jones a little bit banged up, so he should see some more time on the field. I like Mohamed Sanu. Get him in your lineup this week. He's likely to score a touchdown.
And your final start?
Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson is getting it done. We like to pick on the Bucs secondary. That's something we do every week. This week, make sure you find a way to get Anderson in your lineup. He has a touchdown in each of his last 3 games, not to mention the fact I think he hits pay dirt again this week. So far this season, Robbie Anderson is putting up better fantasy numbers than Amari Cooper, Jordy Nelson, and Keenan Allen.
Now let's get to your sits for the week, fantasy executive decisions.
Keenan Allen, he hasn't lived up to expectations so far this season. We always talk about offenses and how they change. This is a guy that was heavily targeted. Now they spread the ball around under the new OC. This week he gets the daunted Jacksonville Jaguars secondary. So far this season, the Jags have only given up 4 touchdown passes. So Keenan Allen is a guy, I got him in a few leagues. He's on my bench this week. That Jacksonville Jaguars secondary is not playing no games right now. Another player you can sit is Will Fuller. Listen, without Deshaun Watson, this kid is going to be a 0. Last week with Tom Savage, he caught 2 passes for 32 yards. The Rams' defense is the 5th best versus opposing fantasy wide receivers. I would go as far as to say with Will Fuller in 10-team leagues, you can cut him. Kenyon Drake, you picked him up off the waiver wire last week. He did a good job for you, got in the end zone. But this week, I think you got to go away from him. Going up against the Carolina Panthers, they're top 5 against fantasy running backs. Mind you, they only allow about 78 yards a game to opposing rushing attacks. That D-line is stout. And then plus you got Jay Cutler. It's not going to be good 2 weeks in a row. So I think Kenyon Drake, even though you were happy with the production you got after you picked him up last week, the urge is going to be to roll him right out there again. But I think you got to sit Drake this week.
We see you out there on Facebook Live, on Periscope. You're commenting. We're talking about the Thursday night football games, Robin, and maybe what should the NFL and the players do about it. Robert Walter says injuries are going to happen whether or not they play more preseason games, midweek games, regularly scheduled games. It's just a part of the sport. Football's rugged, takes a lot of strength as well as wear and tear on the body. It's not new. Something that these players didn't expect before making a career in football. Of course, Rick tweets in and writes in on Facebook, rather, how about teams who have a bye week play the following Thursday. Now, that would be tough because you would need bye weeks very early on in the season, but that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I'd have to see the logistics of the schedule, but that makes sense logically. As far as the other point, of course there's going to be injuries. I mean, we basically have a Pro Bowl roster that's injured. Not all that happened on Thursday night football, but it's common sense. You play a football game on Sunday and only have a couple of days to recover. It's going to be difficult.
Final one. This comes from Lovefield. He said, I liked it when it was Sundays and Mondays, that whole 7 days to celebrate a win or miserable after a loss. Maybe Love, I think you're the only person who's miserable for likes being miserable after 7 days of a loss.
Meanwhile, a sport that's already worked to change their schedule to give guys some more time off, the NBA back in action last night. The Rockets won a tight game over the Cavs, in large part due to James Harden, who is our adrenaline performer presented by Toyota. He followed up his career-high 56-point performance Sunday with a 35-point, 11-rebound, 13-assist game, joining Michael Jordan as the only player in the past 30 years to have a triple-double with at least 35 points and 5 steals. Harden is averaging a career-high in points and is shooting over 40% from the three-point line. The Rockets, they've won 4 in a row and are tied atop the Western Conference with the Warriors. Meanwhile, another team that was supposed to contend in the West continues to struggle. In a game that saw Carmelo Anthony pass Allen Iverson on the all-time scoring list, the Thunder failed to score 100 points in a loss to the Nuggets. The loss dropped them to 4-7. Two expected contenders struggling. Who's in more trouble, the Cavs or the Thunder?
I'm going to go with the Cavs here. There's a lot to unpack. You have a whole new roster, a lot of new roster. They're old. Their defensive efficiency rating is dead last in the league. And on top of that, they've had injuries like to Tristan Thompson, Derrick Rose still working on that ankle. While saying that, the Cavs are going to hit a very favorable part of their schedule right now, teams that they should beat. But weren't we saying that when they lost to the Pacers and the Hawks and the Knicks and the Nets? So I'm going to need to see it to believe it. Why I think the Cavs are going to be in more trouble than the Thunder is because I think the Thunder have a much higher ceiling with the pieces on their team. LeBron James said it last night. He said Isaiah Thomas coming back is not going to fix this. Meanwhile, if Oklahoma City gets things fixed, that's Paul George and Melo and Westbrook, and I feel like the ceiling is so much higher.
There's definitely an argument the Cavs are in more trouble. I mean, Oklahoma City actually has the second best defense in the league right now behind Boston, and if you're talking about figuring things out, they have major pieces figuring it out, not supplementary pieces around one piece. And Westbrook, George, Melo, all playing below their career norms. The reason I think they're in more trouble, though, is they're in the tougher conference.
Sure.
They're 0-6 in that conference right now, and they're going to have to play those teams to get to where they want to get to. I mean, Paul George had said Western Conference Finals before the year, right? Meanwhile, with the Cavs, they're not going to be able to probably get on the Warriors level, but they don't have to go as far to get on the level of the rest of the East, and we have the track record of LeBron James. I was actually encouraged with the way Cleveland played last night against Houston. Defensively, they played some of their best stretches of the season, and they're missing Tristan Thompson. They're missing Isaiah Thomas as well. So when they get whole, they have a little bit of a flexibility to make a move as well. I just think ultimately their path is a little bit easier.
Without a doubt, their path's going to be easier, but I don't think their team has the capability of being as good as the Thunder is capable of being. We're going to have to figure it out.
You betting against LeBron?
No, I'm not that stupid. Meanwhile, big fight night on HBO on Saturday. Former middleweight champion Daniel Jacobs takes on undefeated Luis Arias. Yesterday, I spoke with world-famous boxing promoter Eddie Hearn about putting on a fight in the United States for the very first time. Boxing promoter Eddie Hearn is here. Matchroom Boxing is your company. So not only is this your first fight you're ever promoting in the United States, it's the first fighter you've ever signed who is American, who's going to be the headliner. And Danny Jacobs, of course, we know him well. He went the distance against Gennady Golovkin and lost most recently. Obviously, for Jacobs, his path back to the title will start on Saturday night against Luis Arias. You can watch it on HBO. But what is the path for Jacobs to try to get back to the title?
Well, I think the fight against Gennady Golovkin was a great fight, a very close fight. I actually had him winning the fight, but even if you didn't, you had it a draw or 1 round to Golovkin. So he's already proved his worth and his stock in the 160-pound division. So the aim is to get back to the top and to beat the best again. Arias is a young 18-0 undefeated fighter, has a lot to say for himself. It's a big challenge for Danny, but he wants to prove himself as the top middleweight in the world. We want to get the win on Saturday and move forward and hopefully challenge, the likes of Canelo or Triple G if they rematch. If they don't rematch, I said to Tom Loeffler in Monaco last weekend, if you don't get the rematch, Danny Jacobs is ready to go again. So the aim is to recapture the world title and prove himself as the best in the division.
I don't know why Golovkin would ever want to step back into a ring with Danny Jacobs, though, because he did give him such a good fight. And we know that maybe May 5th, maybe Cinco de Mayo of next year could be a Golovkin-Alvarez rematch if it's going to happen at all. You're also the promoter for heavyweight Anthony Joshua. You've said recently, this is almost breaking news, that he will fight Deontay Wilder, the American, in 2018 at some point. In a perfect world, what would some of those details be? Maybe what month? Where would the fight take place?
I think that, Anthony's looking to box 3 times in 2018. Sometimes if you have a fight the size of Joshua Wilder, you can limit that to 2 fights. So he's looking to box again in March and then again in the summer or possibly September. I think, being honest, the likelihood is the second fight. I still think that Anthony is quite a young heavyweight and these two are still making their name worldwide. As brands, as athletes, as fighters. So the fight's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. These are 2 guys, 59-0 combined record with 58 knockouts. This is the biggest fight in world boxing. But today we had our first meeting to negotiate the fight. It's not something, fans are very impatient these days. We live in a social media and digital world where you're interacting with fans all the time and it's literally like, did you have your meeting today? Is it done? It's like, no, we had some scrambled eggs and smoked salmon, and we just started talking. So lots to discuss: venue, dates, splits, and but the good news for fans is, there was an understanding from both teams that this fight must happen in 2018. Yeah. It's the biggest fight in world boxing, so we need to deliver it for fight fans.
I think there are 2 reasons why fans seem insatiable and why they're very impatient. One is because Mayweather-Pacquiao happened 5 years too late. Number 2 is because in the fight game, the UFC has forced a lot of their fighters to take each other on. And so fans feel like they always get to see the fight that they want to see. With that in mind, Dana White has now confirmed that he is going to get into the boxing business. He's going to start promoting fighters. What is your reaction to that?
I think it's great. I've had a lot of questions on that this week in New York, and people telling me some people in boxing aren't happy. I'm like, why? Why wouldn't you be happy? Dana White's an excellent promoter. He's revolutionised MMA and, of course, been a major factor behind the UFC brand. Brilliant. If he can raise the profile of boxing, we'd like to work with him. We'd like to compete against him. He may find it slightly difficult because what you said about UFC is correct. Effectively, they control the fighters. You're told who you're fighting. It's not a case of negotiating with one promoter, one broadcaster, one team. You're fighting him. Good luck. That's what you're getting paid. Off you go. It's very difficult in boxing and different. And he'll probably get quite frustrated with that. But brilliant to welcome Dana White into the world of boxing. And it goes to show you the value of boxing, because people always argue about, is boxing dead? Has UFC taken over? I see it as 2 completely different sports and audiences, actually. But it shows you that boxing's not dead if the figurehead of the UFC is looking to get into the sport.
Okay, so advice for Dana White from a longtime boxing promoter. Your father was also a boxing promoter. What is it?
Give me a call. Let's have a beer. We'll have a chat. I've got a lot of respect for Dana White and what he's done. And actually, the UFC brand is fantastic. I'll often say to our team in the office, watch the UFC. Not in terms of the fights, but watch what they do around the promotion of fights. They do it very well, very slick. So good luck to Dana White. He's a smart guy, and I'd love to see him in the sport.
Certainly not fighting words coming from you, Eddie Hearn. Congratulations, first of all, your first U.S. promotion. You signed your first American fighter, Danny Jacobs, obviously a fan favorite here in New York City. Have fun this weekend, Nassau Coliseum. You can get tickets on Ticketmaster.com. You can also watch it on HBO.
Thank you very much.
Retired Lieutenant Brad Snyder is here, a 5-time Paralympic gold medalist, 2-time silver medalist swimmer. You also have Gizzy here, and you join us on behalf of Toyota Start Your Impossible initiative, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But first, a little about your story. You're a graduate of the Naval Academy, 2 deployments, one to Iraq, one to Afghanistan. The second was where you stepped on an IED. You eventually lost your sight. Now looking back, that's 6 years ago. Do you think back to that day at all?
A lot. I'd make the rounds and talk about that story quite a bit. My hope is to inspire the community. We're all going to face these major inflection points in our life, but if you adopt the right perspective, there's really nothing you can't achieve.
Wow, so positive. How soon after that did you get back in the pool? You were a swimmer your whole life.
Yep, I grew up swimming. I swam from the age, from when I was about 2 years old. I started competitively swimming when I was 11. Went all the way through the academy. I was the captain of the team there. Gave it up for a while I was active duty, but when you go through a major injury like that, you kind of want to start from the basics, and swimming was a way for me and my family to kind of start from square one and really latch onto something that I was good at and start to rebuild my sense of self. And thankfully I was able to kind of build into succeeding in the Paralympics as well.
You know, in sports, we always root for the story, and I think yours is incredible because almost exactly to the day, or maybe to the day after you had lost your sight, you were in London competing in the games. Can you tell us what happened that day?
Yeah, to the day. September 7th, 2011 is the day that I lost my vision in Afghanistan. Obviously a really devastating day for me and my family, but to be able to turn it around and then go to the Paralympics in London. I competed in the 400-meter freestyle on September 7th, 2012, and was actually able to win a gold medal. So that moment was a really big moment for myself and my family, to stand on that podium, to know that my flag was being raised higher than all the other flags in that arena, and to celebrate that moment with 18,000 people from 130 different countries around the world, to include my family, my mom and my brothers and my sister, was a huge moment, and it was a great moment to kind of retrospect on all the people who had been a big part of that journey, all the people I had served with, all the people in the rehab units, all the people who got me back to the person that I could be, the people, the coaches, Team USA, and so on and so forth. It was an amazing moment.
Yeah, and you're giving a lot of credit to the community. I know that you really appreciate how they were able to help and help you along your journey. But what did that day do for you personally? I mean, you were the one who had to go through the trauma. What did that day do for you?
I don't know. You say I'm the one who had to go through the trauma. I think I went through it with my family. Okay. I went through it side by side with a lot of people who love me and care about me. And I think, it was the people that I've been with along the way. Thinking about my buddy Tyler Trahan, who was killed in 2009. I think thinking about how I was lucky to be alive and thinking about how he had given me an opportunity to come back really enabled me to get through all those moments. Going through those low moments with my mom, who was able to give me the perspective to look on the bright side and be thankful for what I have and not rue the things that I don't, were what got me through all those experiences. So to be able to have a tangible representation of an accomplishment at the end of that rehab process, to thank all of those people, was really probably the thing that made it so special.
Yeah. You are a retired lieutenant, obviously, Naval Academy. I mentioned that before, but you have articulated just how much hearing the anthem, what that meant to you after winning that gold medal, and when you went on to win many gold medals. The anthem has been in the news a lot lately, especially with sports. And I'm just curious to get your opinion, when you hear about NFL players, other athletes taking a knee during the anthem, how does that make you feel?
Not to make a long story of it, it was difficult at first because, as a veteran, we really do tie the anthem and the decorum surrounding the flag to our service and the service members. And you see the flags that drape the coffins of those who come back, and having buried a couple friends of mine, that decorum is something that we hold very sacred. But for me, to think about what happened in '68 and to think about the relationship that law enforcement has with our underprivileged areas and where we are with civil rights right now, I couldn't help but think that I support. I serve to support the freedom of speech, and I support those who wish to use their platform to call attention to the things that are wrong with our country. However, I hold very near and dear to that decorum, and our flag represents something very important to me. So I don't think that the two, I think, gets conflated right now. I think we should be able to call attention to the things that need to be fixed.
You're here with Toyota. Start your impossible. And what I like about this is it's a creation of a more inclusive and sustainable society in which everyone can challenge their impossible. I mean, describe what this means to you. And also, are there areas of maybe sports or society where we should be more inclusive, or we still have a lot of work to do?
Yeah, I think, for me, adapting to blindness, my biggest struggle was that of mobility. So I have to use things like my cane, my guide dog here, and getting from point A to point B was the biggest struggle. So to have a major global company like Toyota say that they want to get on board and enable the world's mobility, not just in the way of vehicles, but in adaptive wheelchairs and these human support robots. These are really impactful and important things. And I think by enabling the mobility of the world, Toyota really believes, and I really believe, that we don't know the limits of what we're capable of, and that's why we say start your impossible. We don't know what's possible until we try. As far as inclusivity in sports, one of the things I'm really prideful about being in the Paralympics is giving those with disabilities an opportunity to compete, and not only compete, but compete in the second largest sporting event in the world. In doing so, we're able to change what a disability looks like. When you think of disability, or at least before the Paralympics, when you said disability to me, I think of someone who's debilitated, kind of an outcast from society, someone who's in a wheelchair, who's on the outside looking in. But when we compete in the Paralympics, those in a wheelchair, they're not on the outside looking in. They're racing around the track, or they're playing basketball, or we have blind folks playing goalball, or swimming in large arenas surrounded by 18,000 people. For me, it reframes what we look at as far as disability, and we're giving people who are traditionally disenfranchised, we're giving them an opportunity to succeed and to inspire the community.
That's just fantastic. Okay, so personally for you, you have a stack of medals. You have accomplished so much in your life. What's your Paralympic future like? What do you hope it's like?
The reason I compete is not to win medals or make any money. It's to inspire the community. You know, service is something that's been a part of me and my family for a very long time. The fact that I don't don a naval uniform anymore does not take me away from wanting to serve my community. And the way that I serve now is hopefully showing people the way to adapt to adversity and find ways to pursue their happiness. And so I want to continue to serve as a positive example in that light all the way out till 2028. I want to compete in the Tokyo Games as a triathlete, continue on in the Paris Games in whatever capacity I can, and find a way to stay relevant until the age of 44 when the Games come home to the United States of America.
Wow, Brad, that is awesome. Huge, huge goals. And hopefully Gizzy will be by your side through all of this.
Absolutely. Gizzy's my guiding light.
Brad Snyder, of course, retired lieutenant, 5-time Paralympic gold medalist, 2-time silver medalist, joining us on behalf of Toyota's Start Your Impossible initiative. It is such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meg. I appreciate it.
It's time for SI Now's Weekend Drive, presented by Toyota. Let's go places. We start this week in the state of Alabama, where number 1 Georgia will battle number 10 Auburn. This is the first real test for the Bulldogs since their 1-point victory over Notre Dame earlier in the season. Georgia head coach Kirby Smart will be traveling to Jordan-Hare Stadium for the first time as a head coach, but doesn't have many fond memories playing the Tigers.
It just seems that I've played in there a lot because it's the overlap between playing here and coaching where I used to coach. So it has a lot to do with it, but there's nothing that really sticks out. I mean, I don't really remember playing real well. I remember Bobo's throw to get us into overtime, and then the kick 6. Obviously, all I remember is the kick 6. So that haunts you forever.
Auburn will look to boost their offense. The Tigers were held to only 164 yards and lost last year's tilt in Athens, 13-7. Next, we travel to Columbus, Ohio for a pivotal Big Ten matchup between the Buckeyes and the Spartans. After a demoralizing defeat to Iowa, Ohio State's Big Ten championship hopes are still alive. Buckeyes head coach Urban Meyer is familiar with this rivalry and knows he can't take the Spartans lightly.
It's been a competitive game as long as I can remember, going back to my childhood watching Michigan State versus Ohio State, so this is a lot on the table when we play these guys.
The Spartan defense will look to stop Ohio State's rushing attack. The Buckeyes have averaged more than 235 yards per game on the ground, while the Spartans have only been conceding 87. Lastly, we head to the Mile High City, where the Patriots and the Broncos will add to their recent rivalry. The Patriots will start a long road trip stretch, playing 5 of their next 6 games in hostile territory. New England tight end Rob Gronkowski, though, always geared up to play in Denver's electric atmosphere.
Denver's always a challenge. They always have a good team, always have a good defense, and just going in, the competitive atmosphere, the football atmosphere there with their fans. They're always loud, they're always cheering, so just overall, great football atmosphere, great team. It always makes it hard to win on the road there.
The Pats have history on their side. In their last 6 meetings, New England is 5-1, including winning the last 3 straight in Denver. And that's what's in store for this weekend.